Yeah, absolutely. We're excited to have this conversation with all of you today. ERC is a really unique program, and there's a lot of nuances to it. Hopefully today we can get through some of the things that are a little bit more black and white, and then as we get to your questions, we can dive a little bit more into the nuance. But I've like Chuck mentioned, I've been doing ERC for a little bit over a year, and we have learned so much about this program, about how to drive efficiency in this program, help our customers, and so forth. And so we're excited to have this conversation with you today. A couple of things is, as we just get started talking about the employee retention credit, ERC, it is a payroll tax credit. It came into play about the same time as PPP. A lot of people are familiar with that when the CARES Act passed a couple of years ago in the midst of the pandemic. And Lendio did a lot during that time to help our customers with PPP. We did, I think, a little over $9 billion in PPP funding. So altogether, we're around $10 billion in pandemic relief with ERC and PPP combined. And so learned a lot. And ERC is a little bit unique. It wasn't as publicized as PPP. In the beginning, you couldn't get ERC and PPP. And so, it kind of flew under the radar for quite some time. And a lot of people didn't know if it was real, felt a little bit like a scam when you start hearing numbers like, hey man, you can qualify for up to $26,000 per employee. And so, Lendio, here it is really important to us, and I know it's important to Alignable as well, that we are able to help small business owners as much as possible to fuel their businesses. We felt like we were in a really unique spot to help businesses in PPP. And we felt the same way with ERC. To bring, kind of these highly complex programs with a lot of legal guidelines and tax codes to the consumer in a way that is easy to understand, and step-by-step high-tech process with, smart touch and high-touch support for individuals that need help. And so, that's what we want to talk about today. A couple of things just as we get started that may, get rid of some of the misnomers about ERC. ERC is a payroll tax credit. So we get questions all the time from customers of, hey, if I wasn't profitable in my tax returns, this is a tax credit, can I actually qualify for anything? Well, because ERC is a payroll tax credit, and because it's a refundable tax credit, which simply means you can get more than what you paid in payroll taxes. Businesses that aren't profitable can qualify, no problem. You can get a lot more back than what you paid in Social Security or Medicare taxes, depending on the filing. It goes against those different tax allocations. And so refundable tax credit, you don't have to be profitable. There's no cap for how much you can receive, based off of, obviously your qualifications. And then, it comes in the form of a check. And so, this is cash in hand for individuals today because, you would have filed for the tax periods that you can qualify for ERC under in 2020 and 2020. So we talked a little bit about some of the things on this slide, but we'll go through a couple of others just briefly here. ERC, in order to file for ERC, what you do is you actually refile your payroll tax returns as an amendment for 2020 and 2021 for those qualifying and eligible quarters. One of the other misnomers that people have about ERC, and it's largely because of how it started out, is that you can't get PPP and ERC at the same time. What's happened is over time, Congress has expanded access to ERC. And while you cannot double dip on the same payroll, meaning, if I qualified for PPP in early in 2021, I can't use the same payroll dollars that I used to qualify for PPP forgiveness as I used to qualify for ERC. But outside of those overlapping payroll dollars, you certainly can qualify for PPP and ERC. And that's one of the things, we can dive deeper in if you have questions on that a little bit later in the Q&A section. Let me go to the next slide here. Let's dive right into kind of the meat of this, and help you understand how businesses qualify and how much they can qualify for. So tax year 2020, that constitutes one qualification period. So it runs from about Q2 of 2020 through Q4 of 2020, and you can qualify for ERC. You qualify for up to 50% of the first $10,000 in wages that your employees receive during that period. So if you meet the qualification markers, which we'll talk about here in a second, you can qualify at 50% of up to $10,000. In layman's terms, that's just $5,000 per employee for that one period, based on the individual period qualifications. And you can retroactively file for this today up through April of 2024. So that's kind of a time slot that we have to refile those amended returns. When we start bringing in 2021, as we talked about earlier, ERC was less publicized than what PPP was. It continued to be expanded by Congress. They wanted to provide this relief program for businesses. And so, they kept opening up opportunities for businesses to apply and gain access to this capital. And so you will see that instead of 50% of up to $10,000, you receive 70% of up to $10,000 per quarter instead of for the entire period, right? So 2020, that is from Q2 through Q4, one qualification period, $5,000 per employee. And then in 2021, you can earn 70% up to $10,000. That's $7,000 per employee per quarter for those first 3 quarters. And that can get you up to $21,000. So as everybody who has heard of ERC, you've heard, this language that's being tossed around where everybody says, hey, you can qualify for up to $26,000 per employee. That is coming from specifically these two numbers. And so for 2021 quarters, you can refile those amended returns up through April of 2025. And so, we talked about that $26,000 per employee. I want to make sure that, people can put this into context for themselves a little bit here. That means that if I qualify for all quarters, that means all quarters in 2020, all quarters in 2021, I can get up to $26,000 per employee, which means if I had 10 employees, that's $260,000 that I can put in my bank today through this credit. And so pretty substantial, pretty exciting. I asked all of our advisors and employees internally when they first start here, one of the things that we always like to ask them is, hey, if you had, our average credit has been around $75,000 to $80,000 historically since we've started doing this thing. And we asked them, hey, if you had $80,000 in your account that you didn't know about today, what would that do for you? And that gets us excited. There are very few times in our lives that we have the opportunity to be engaged in an initiative that can be so impactful to the business owners that we help. And so it's really exciting to get those $80,000 checks into the hands of business owners. Even more exciting when they start getting in the millions and so forth for some of these business owners. And so a lot of opportunity here. We want to make sure that we help you as business owners to capitalize on this credit. So let's let's shift gears a little bit. That is how much you can qualify for, but let's work through how you qualify. So the one thing that I want to make sure everybody understands first and foremost is that in order to qualify, you have to have W-2 employees. This is one of those things where we get a lot of questions, a lot of people that want to apply if, they're 1099s or contractors or sole proprietors as self-employed individuals. This is only available to businesses who employ W-2 employees, and those employees that count towards this credit can't be direct relatives of the majority owners. So aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, mother, father, grandma, grandpa. Those employees don't count towards the credit. Now, if you have employees that are relatives and you have other employees that aren't, that doesn't mean you can't qualify for those that aren't. You can just only count the employees that aren't related to each other into the credit. So if you have passed that first barrier, yes, I have W-2 employees and I employed W-2 employees in 2020 and in 2021, fantastic. You met that first qualification. Second, you have to qualify in one of two ways in each of the qualifying quarters. So you'll remember we said Q2 of 2020 through Q4 of 2020, that's one qualification period. And then each quarter for the first 3 quarters in 2021 is a qualification period. For that 2020 qualification period, if you are qualifying based off of a decrease in revenue, you need to be able to show that you had a 50% decrease in gross receipts as compared to 2019, right? So that means if in Q2 of 2020, I had a 50% decrease in my gross receipts as compared to 2019. So I made $100,000 in 2019. I made just under $50,000 in 2020. I meet that qualification, and I qualify for each subsequent quarter in 2020 until I reach 80% of my 2019 revenue. That's how that 2020 period works. And so, until I, $100,000 was the way it was across all of 2020 quarters, Q2, Q3, and Q4, that would mean that if I didn't reach that $80,000 mark, I would still qualify for every quarter up to the first $10,000 in payroll. Again, 50% of that. So the first, I can earn up to $5,000 per employee. Second qualification, if we go to 2021 quarters in that decrease in revenue, again, Congress widened this bucket over time. And so we went from a 50% decrease as compared to 2019 to you have to show a 20%, at least a 20% decrease. And so, if I made $100,000 in Q1 of 2019, made $100,000 in Q1 of 2021, less than $80,000 in Q1 of 2021, I would then qualify under that decrease in revenue. And they would look at individual qualifications for the remaining one. If you don't qualify in decrease in revenue, so you're looking at that and you're saying, hey, actually, my business did pretty well during the pandemic. There were certainly things that we were restricted from doing, but I didn't have a reduction in gross receipts. We were able to fare through that just fine. No problem. You still may be able to qualify. So if you don't qualify based on decrease of revenue, the second place you can qualify is based on a government mandate or shutdown. So the way the IRS defines this is a full or partial shutdown of your business. Full shutdown, pretty cut and dry, pretty straightforward, right? There was a city leader, a town leader, a county leader, state leader, a national leader that said you could not run your business in the same way. There was a specific government mandate that was issued that said, hey, you can no longer operate in the way that you were operating before. Example of this, I own a restaurant. I have dine-in services. I have takeout services. They say you can't do dine-in at all. You can only do takeout. That would be an example of a government order that said, hey, you cannot operate in the same way as you were before. Now, the qualification for that is they say you have to have a nominal impact on your business. Nominal is defined as 10%. And so the way they define that is either in size or effect. And so maybe greater than 10% of my employees' hours were in the dine-in portion of my business. That would qualify. Maybe in that situation, I wasn't, my dine-in wasn't completely shut down, but the tables had to be spaced apart, 6 feet, and I couldn't service as many people. If it impacted 10% of my capacity, there you go, other qualification. So we're looking for specific government orders. Sometimes businesses have full shutdowns and then they move into partial shutdowns. And the exciting thing about what we offer, and we'll go through a little bit of our process and everything here at the end, but the exciting thing we offer with Alignable here is we actually have paralegals, tax attorneys, smart individuals that have repositories of government orders. So what we need from you as you're going through our process is you go through and you tell us how you were impacted, what timeframes you may have been impacted in. What we then do is we partnered with tax preparation specialists, attorneys, so forth, that do the deep dive for you. And they dive in and they say, okay, it looks like they qualify, in May through June or the middle of June based on this government order, full shutdown. And then they'll also search for other orders, mandate shutdowns that may have impacted your business. And our goal is to really help you maximize the credit more than you ever could on your own, because the resources, technology, everything else that we have available. So those are the two ways to qualify. I have a decrease in revenue where I was impacted by the pandemic through a government mandate. So there is one additional qualification that came into play towards the middle of this program in 2021, where they introduced this new term called the recovery startup business. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get capital in hand of businesses that started during the midst of the pandemic. During a tough time, they decided to take that risk, take everything on their shoulders, and see if they couldn't venture out on their own and living through a business. So they're rewarding those individuals, anybody who started after February 15th, 2020, that made less than $1 million in gross receipts and paid W-2 employees in Q3 and Q4 of 2021. So that extra quarter qualification for a recovery startup business, Q2, Q3 and Q4, they auto qualify if they had less than $1 million in gross receipts and they started after February. So those are kind of the main things. A couple of things that we just want to go through and make sure that you understand, like, hey, these are the biggest disqualifiers that we run into. Not that this is all inclusive, but if you go back to the last list, if you don't meet any of those qualifications, obviously we don't qualify. A couple of other things to mention: if you didn't have W-2 employees, that is going to be an automatic disqualifier. As we've talked about, 1099s don't count. The other rule is just kind of this FTE, this size restriction. So the IRS defines a full-time equivalent employee, an FTE, as someone who worked greater than 30 hours a week. And so anybody that worked for less than 30 hours a week, you don't have to count towards this greater than 100 or greater than 500 employee rule. If you look at 2020 specifically, the limit is 100 employees. So if you had greater than 100 employees, FTEs, that work greater than 30 hours, then only the employees that didn't work and still got paid count towards the credit. So it gets harder to qualify for those 2020 quarters if you did exceed those thresholds. For 2021, again, like we mentioned over and over again, they opened things up a little bit. Greater than 500 employees, FTEs, become the exception. And so again, if you have greater than 500 employees that work greater than 30 hours a week, then only the employees that didn't work and still got paid would count towards that. So that does not mean that if you have 1,000 part-time employees that didn't work greater than 30 hours a week, that you shouldn't apply. There's great opportunity for those businesses out there. These restrictions are specifically around employees that work greater than 30 hours. So, lastly, the thing that we haven't talked too much about, you have other credits that overlap a little bit with ERC, meaning like if you got R&D and you qualified based on payroll, or you got WOTC, any of those other tax credits, that doesn't mean you don't qualify, but you just can't double dip on those payroll dollars towards a tax credit. So I can't take one tax credit here, one tax credit there, and so forth. So what we'll do in those circumstances, we'll gather the information on what you qualified for within these tax credit ranges, and then we can help walk you through where we can separate that out and where you can claim ERC, where it overlaps and you can't. And so those are kind of the main disqualifiers. A couple of things that I would just mention here while we're talking about this is, you have a lot of companies out there. The IRS has issued statements around ERC mills, beware of ERC mills, and so forth. And there are companies out there that are just taking attestations as a whole from you, saying, hey, do you think you qualified? And if so, they're accepting that and using that to take a cut of your credit. Make sure as you're vetting this out and deciding who you go with and who you partner with, we highly encourage people to partner with somebody on this. There's 170 plus pages of tax code that you have to go through and review to really understand this. I would recommend you get a second opinion if you've gone one place and gotten one answer, and you feel like based on watching this that you may qualify when you were told maybe you didn't. Get those second opinions, work through it, because it's a lot to understand and work through. And so, there's a lot of expertise in the space. Just make sure that you understand the work that people are doing for you. Are they, doing that government order deep dive that we talked about earlier? Do they truly have tax attorneys that are on their team or that they've contracted with? All those things are extremely important as you think about moving. So how to apply? Obviously, you could apply on your own. You could go to your CPA. They could file amended returns for you. We have a service that we really feel like we can provide probably the best experience that exists in the space, from a high tech and a high touch solution where you have the experts and the technology to help you complete your application. But do your homework. Let us answer those questions for you. Let us help you in any way we can. We do charge a 15% fee. It's 15% of what you qualify for in the credit. If you don't qualify, you don't pay a thing. Essentially, what we're trying to do is make sure that you understand, what your opportunity is there, and that's paid out, based on what you qualify for. So let me walk you through our process, show you what we do from our technology standpoint and with our tax preparation team, and we can go from there. So the first thing prior to getting to this account setup is we actually take you to a page that asks you a series of pre-qualification questions. What we don't want you to do is spend a lot of time doing a lot of work when you don't qualify from the get-go based on some of the early criteria that we talked about a little bit earlier in this webinar. And so once you get past that pre-qualification stage, we'll give you hey, you could qualify for up to this amount. We'll shoot you over to this page where you can create an account and sign up with us. And then what we do is we take you to a page that we call kind of our filtration page. And what we do here is we just set up the remainder of the experience for you. And here we're trying to understand what modules, what data, what information we need to have from you. And this is where, you know, our expertise really starts to kick in and start to save you time, because we can start saying, hey, based on your answers, we don't need this, we do need this, and so forth. We then will take you, this is again a part of kind of that filtration page. We then will take you to what we call our ERC checklist. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to create an opportunity for ours and Alignable's clients to come in and have a checklist type field where they can come and go as they need to figure this out and to get the information that they need, rather than having a linear application like a lot of applications in the space where, you know, you have to go and find where you last left off or whatever it may be. So when you come back to your ERC application, once you've signed up, you'll come back to this page that allows you to click into individual modules and complete each section at a time. So maybe you don't have your tax filings on hand, you do have your payroll documents, put those in, you get your payroll tax filings a little bit later. Maybe you don't have your gross receipts, but you can fill out the info about how, you know, your business was impacted by a government order and so forth. And so you can come and go, complete things as you please. You know, these next slides are just kind of examples of what those pages look like. What we've tried to do, you know, on this page, we've also partnered and we pay on your behalf a subsidiary that aggregates your payroll data for you. If you have some of the more common electronic payroll service providers like Gusto, ADP, things like that, they can service most of those individuals, or, you know, you can manually upload those payroll statements. And so again, we're just trying to make this as easy as it possibly can be for you to provide the information that's needed to qualify for the credit. From there, what we do, once we package this up, it goes to a quality control team on our end, which makes sure the package is as complete as it can possibly be before an accountant, CPA, attorney reviews it. And then we've partnered and done the due diligence on our end to make sure that we've found the best ERC providers that we could find in the space that have the CPAs and attorneys that can do the back end work. So we in Alignable, we work to provide that front end experience, get that full package in place for you. And then we have those experts, those tax attorneys, those CPAs do the remainder of the work for you on the back end. All in you know, an attempt to get you as much as we possibly can and to provide a great service for you where, you know, it's worth your money. And, you know, we know you're busy. So we have agents constantly available to help you and walk you through the process and answer your questions as well that are experts in this space. So hopefully this has been really helpful from that perspective to see what our process was like, to understand how you qualify for ERC,